What started out as a dream turned into a real nightmare. My name is Robert Hartman, and I want to share with you my story that almost took everything away from me. After adopting a child, my wife and I just dissolved into loving him. We tried to do everything we could to make him feel loved and protected. We supported him, believed in his potential, and hoped that one day he would become a pillar of our family. But fate had it differently. You know how it happens. You live an ordinary life, work, make plans, believe in the future, and suddenly something happens that turns your whole world upside down. That's exactly what happened to me. What started out as a dream turned out to be a real nightmare, a betrayal that almost destroyed everything I had created. But the most amazing thing is how this crisis made me rethink my values and realize that true victory lies not only in achieving success, but also in being able to get back up after a fall. My wife Carol and I have always dreamed of having a large family. We both grew up in families with many siblings and wanted to create the same warm atmosphere at home. But fate had it differently. After several years of trying to have a child, we realized that nature had deprived us of his happiness. The doctor's diagnoses were ruthless: infertility. It was a blow to both of us, but we didn't give up. We began to think about adoption. This decision didn't come to us easily. We discussed the pros and cons for a long time, but in the end we came to the conclusion that our love for children and our desire to give a decent life to a child in need was stronger than any fears. So we began the adoption process. A few months later, we were offered the opportunity to meet a baby boy named Jason. When we first saw this little boy with big brown eyes, our hearts melted. We already knew he was going to be a part of our family. Jason was truly a sweet baby. When he first came into our family, his amazing eyes looked at us with such trust and joy that it was impossible to resist him. He quickly settled into his new home as if he had always lived there. Every morning he woke up with a smile, and it seemed that nothing could dampen his mood. We called him our little sunshine that lit up our home with joy. Carol and I did our best to make him feel loved and protected. We bought him the best toys, clothes, books. I remember the hours we spent picking out birthday and holiday gifts for him. He was always surrounded by attention and care. We often took him on trips, showing him different countries, cities, cultures. There were no boundaries for us when it came to our son's happiness. Yes, he is our favorite son. My company, which I once created literally from scratch, began to bring in a stable income. I invested all my energy, knowledge, and experience in it, and the results did not take long to come. Now we had enough money to provide Jason with a decent life. We tried to give him everything we could: a good education, the opportunity to do sports, art, and develop his talents. I was proud that I was able to create such conditions for my son. And Jason really grew up a happy boy. He was surrounded by love and care, and it seemed that nothing could disturb our ideal world. But adolescence brought its own challenges. Like many children, Jason began to experience not only physiological changes, but also psychological changes. At first, they were small changes. He started spending more time in his room, less socializing with us. We wrote it off as normal teenage whims and thought it was temporary. Gradually, however, the changes became more noticeable. Jason became more withdrawn, sometimes even aggressive. He started fighting at school, being rude to teachers and classmates. This news came as a real shock to us. We tried to talk to him to find out what was going on, but he closed himself off from us, avoided frank conversations. We searched for the reasons for his behavior, read books on the psychology of adolescence, turned to specialists, but we couldn't get through to his consciousness. We thought that this is just a transitional period, that soon everything will get better. Continue to love him, support, believe that he will cope with these difficulties. But our patience was tested more and more. Sometimes it seemed that an invisible wall had grown between us, and we didn't know how to break it down. But we kept hoping that one day things would get better. After graduating from high school, Jason went to a prestigious university. Carol, and I sincerely hope that studying at university would help him to become a more responsible and mature person. The university was known for its high standards and rigorous requirements, and we believe it was exactly what our son needed. Things did look optimistic at first. Jason wasn't an honors student, but he wasn't failing exams either. He was participating in student activities, making new friends, and seemed to be finding his place in the big world. We continued to support him with advice and finances. Even though he was not doing well, we could see that he was trying, and that was what mattered to us. As time went on, Jason gradually matured. He became more independent and began to think about his future. And then we made the decision to tell Jason the truth about the adoption. He took the news quite calmly. He asked a few questions, and the answers seemed to satisfy him. The subject never came up again. After graduation, he unexpectedly approached me with a request to work for my company. I had mixed feelings about this offer. On the one hand, I was glad that my son was interested in the family business. After all, I had always dreamed of passing it on to someone who would continue my business. On the other hand, I knew it was a big responsibility, and I wasn't sure if Jason was ready for such a step. But seeing his enthusiasm and willingness to learn, I agreed. We started with the basics. I introduced him to accounting and showed him how to keep track of expenses and income. Then we moved on to marketing, how to attract clients, how to run advertising campaigns. Then it was the turn of personnel management, how to motivate people, how to resolve conflict, how to delegate authority. Jason listened attentively, took notes, asked questions, and tried to absorb every detail. As time went on, I began to assign him more and more tasks, watching how well he did them. Everything was going smoothly, and I was beginning to think that I would make the right choice by appointing him as my successor. But that's when the first trouble came. My health suddenly failed. I had a heart attack and ended up in the hospital. I realized that I couldn't continue to run the company the way I had been, so I decided to appoint Jason as managing director. It wasn't an easy decision, but I believed he could do it. After all, I had invested so much energy and knowledge in him. I was sure that he would be able to continue my work, develop the company, and take it to the next level. Besides, I was always ready to help with advice and support. However, as it turned out later, my expectations were in vain. The problems began to build up unnoticed, like a snowball that rolls down a slope and then turns into an avalanche that sweeps away everything in its path. Jason began to make decisions that were seriously questionable. He made deals that seemed extremely risky and unprofitable. Instead of strengthening the company's position in the market, he invested in projects that did not have a long-term perspective. When the first results of his activities became visible, they reported to me. I tried to convey to him the idea that such decisions could result in financial losses, but he assured me that he had everything under control and ignored my advice. Then came a series of layoffs. Jason began to get rid of key employees who had been with the company for years and knew it inside out. He replaced them with young people who, although they had up-to-date knowledge, had no experience in our business. This led to a breakdown in the company's operations. Customers began to complain about the deterioration of service quality. Deliveries were delayed, contracts were canceled. The company began to lose profits. Revenues were decreasing and expenses were increasing. Jason spent money on unnecessary projects, luxurious offices, and expensive cars. He claimed it was necessary to maintain the company's image, but I could see that it was just a waste of resources. The debts began to pile up, and the company's financial position became increasingly precarious. I tried to take control of the situation, but my health was still too weak. I tried to take control, but my health remained too weak. He assured me that everything was going according to plan and that he knew exactly what he was doing. Nevertheless, the situation was getting worse by the day. I felt that I was losing control, but I had no idea how to prevent this descent into the abyss. Finally, my condition stabilized, and one morning I came to the office. I found that the company's accounts were empty. All the money was gone. Jason was gone too. No one knew where he had gone. Employees were panicking, customers were calling with questions, and banks were demanding repayment. I knew immediately what had happened. Jason had stolen millions of dollars and disappeared. The police were called immediately, and an investigation began. However, Jason's tracks were quickly lost. It turned out that he had planned his escape in advance, opened offshore accounts, and transferred the funds there. At first, it looked like he would be caught, but it soon became apparent that he had fled to one of those countries where it's easy to get lost. The police put him on an international wanted list. It was a devastating blow to me. Everything I had dedicated my life to was crumbling right before my eyes. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. My family was devastated, and my health continued to be a concern. I felt absolutely shattered. There was a fear that a seizure could happen at any moment. I spent several days in a state of despondency, not knowing what to do next. I wondered why he did it, what he was missing, because we treated him with love, care, and support. Maybe he was looking for a way to assert himself, to show his independence? Or were his motives criminal from the beginning? These thoughts kept me in suspense, but I had no answer. One night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, I realized that I couldn't just give up. It's not just my company. It's a whole team of people who have put all their energy, experience, and knowledge into it. This is my life's work. I have to save the company and restore its success. And most importantly, I have to prove to myself that I am still capable of it. I gathered the remaining employees, explained the situation, and presented a plan to overcome the crisis. We cut costs, reworked our strategy, and brought in new investors. Every day was a challenge, but over time things began to stabilize. Customers started to return, finances were replenished, and the company started to grow again. Of course, it wasn't easy. My heart reminded me of itself every day, but I kept fighting. And after a year, the company not only came out of the crisis, but became even more successful than before. I am proud that I was able to overcome this difficult journey. As for Jason, he was never caught. He's probably living somewhere far away, enjoying the money he stole. But I don't think about him anymore. He chose to live on the run, and that's his choice. I, on the other hand, continue to live my life. My wife Carol has supported me every step of the way, and because of her I have found the strength to move forward. It showed me that true strength is not in money or success, but in the people around you. Their support, love, and loyalty